Welcome to Buffalo Sports Page. I'm Stu Boyar along with Bud Bailey and Tony Fiorello. Today's show is sponsored by the Paul Wolf Insurance Agency, Logistics Plus of Buffalo, and Dan Chacha, Personal Injury Attorneys. Now, when we convened last time, two of us at least, Bud and me, were not too excited about the Four Nations tournament. Well, that certainly has changed as I can't wait for the game tonight. I watched that overtime of the first game, and I was like, wow, fabulous. I think it's been a great tournament.
Guys, let this be a lesson. Best on best international hockey is always awesome.
Considering the lack of preparation time, did they ever practice except for once before the game? It seemed like it was thrown together pretty quickly. In terms of the game, the lineup and games itself, it's not like they had 6 weeks to train. They just said, okay, it's like we'll pick these guys, and you take your team, and we'll see what happens. It's been pretty impressive, the parts I've seen at least, how well they've adapted to that and picked it up and brought intensity, obviously. And that's really the key thing. And it's been an amazing contrast to the other sports in terms of intensity. Football, they've given up on it.
Yeah.
Basketball,
They should give up on it.
They haven't figured out how to make everybody care. Baseball is a little different just because of the nature of the game. But hockey has usually been, if anybody touches anyone, they're kicked out of the game just for spoiling things. Now in the All-Star game, you've got actual hard-fought competition. Guys are getting hurt and messing up the rest of the season. They don't care.
Well, they probably should have had bigger taxi squads, or call them whatever you want. Need more depth there. The opening 9 seconds, which I know you probably hated, but I'm sitting there at home, and right off the face-off, they drop the gloves. I said, oh, my goodness. Then they face it off again, and they do it again. And then the first scramble, or whatever you want to call it, and then they do it again. I was like, okay, boys, you got that out of the way. Now go play some hockey, and they did. Fabulous game. Helped that USA won because, we are Americans. But I can't wait for the rematch tonight. I don't expect there to be any fighting, but I expect a tough physical hockey game. And a lot of guys got a lot to prove. Cale Makar comes in. Charlie McAvoy is out. Chris Kreider's back in. Tage Thompson is there, and Quinn Hughes is there, I think, but I don't think either one of them is going to play.
He didn't travel, Hughes. He
didn't make it there.
I don't think Vancouver's doctors or maybe USA Hockey didn't clear him. So
I thought I saw Thompson interviewed on the news in Buffalo yesterday.
They sent him up. Tage will be up here, and so is Brett Pesce, I think, from New Jersey. He'll be up here.
It's not
here up at Boston.
I was going to say it's not hard to get from here to Boston, right?
Unless you drive.
Good point.
It's been a little risky lately.
Yes. Well, I think if you look at the game, both goaltenders have a little something to prove. Bennington had that soft one from Gensel. And Hellebuck, when the last time he was tough when it really mattered, 2016 when Winnipeg made it to the Final Four? So both goaltenders need to be at their best, and so far they haven't. And a couple of other interesting ones. Mitch Marner scored the game-winning overtime goal in the first one, which, by the way, was a fabulous overtime. Mm-hmm. And Austin Matthews, who's dealing with some sort of injury, but neither of those two Maple Leafs have shined brightly. And if you look at it this way, Nathan MacKinnon, Sidney Crosby, and Connor McDavid, would you say those are the three best players in the sport?
They're in the discussion.
Yeah. Yep.
Well,
and I was just going to say, you mentioned that. I mean, Austin Matthews is I think he's only got 1 point the whole tournament, and I think McDavid only has.
Got a goal.
McDavid does have 4 points. I'm sorry, but anyways, it's that's not really a surprise to see Toronto Maple Leafs, blowing it when it matters the most.
Well, I mean, I'm just looking forward to the game. It should be fun. I think it's captivated a huge audience, which hockey's actually getting some respect on SportsCenter now, which is a nice thing to see. So if nothing else is accomplished by this tournament, there is that.
Don't forget, ESPN has the rights to
that is true.
Some NHL games, and SportsCenter often goes by the fact of
That's true.
What sports are on our channel.
Well, that is true. The ratings for hockey in the U.S. apparently are down significantly, but apparently this has given them a big boost here in the United States.
I think I read somewhere that this is probably the highest ratings for a non-Stanley Cup final game in like 10 years or something like that.
Even longer, I think.
Yeah.
Something like that.
So, I mean, that's great to see. So I'm looking forward to the game. there's always going to be somebody, one of the unsung heroes will probably step up and get the game winner, right? That's the way it works. Hopefully it's not a blowout. Hopefully it's a tough, physical, and very competitive game.
In a world where Mike Rupp can score a Stanley Cup winning goal.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. Or take another obscure name from a different sport. Wasn't it Brian Doyle who was a World Series MVP once?
That would have been 78, I think.
Yeah, okay. Well, that's guys like that.
But it was the Yankees, so,
Well, so it doesn't count. I get it.
You would say
didn't
that.
pay attention. Once the Red Sox lost that playoff game.
Oh, yeah, Bucky Dent.
I switched the
sorry.
channel, yeah.
Sorry.
Bad memory.
Even when my teams lose, I still watch.
I do too.
I know you do. As disappointing as it might be. So, we'll see how that one plays out. And then, of course, Saturday, the NHL resumes. And we're going to discuss that when we come back. You are watching Buffalo Sports Page.
Need an electrician? Empire Electric is your residential wiring specialist. New builds, service upgrades, lighting, generators, you name it, Empire does it with hundreds of 5-star reviews that speak for themselves. Call Empire Electric today for your free estimate.
Education has power. Binghamton University students discover it, apply it, unleash it. Unleash your education today.
Welcome back to Buffalo Sports Page. I'm Stu. He's Bud. He's Tony. I heard this week, and correct me if I'm not right, but James Cook, the Bills' running back, wants a new deal, and he wants $15 million a year, and then he canceled all his social media stuff that follows the Bills. Now, he has a contract for 1 year left on it,
Minor
correct?
inconvenience.
Okay. So, I don't expect anything dramatic to happen, but can this turn into a big problem?
Can it? Yes.
Is it right now?
No.
Okay. How do they prevent it from becoming one?
Well,
and don't just
when
say
it comes
sign
to
them.
contract negotiations, my motto is it never hurts to ask.
Oh, that's true.
Where you get into problems is when you start taking firm positions. And look at the Blue Jays this past week. Vladimir Guerrero set the other day as the final deadline for a contract after his last year. Otherwise, he's going into free agency, which, geez, give him a little time. And I know deadlines sometimes make deals, and he probably had hopes of doing that and getting a Soto-sized contract or close to it, and it didn't come together. So he's now out of luck. We're certainly not at that stage with Cook. Now, if you want to argue, is he worth $15 million in today's market? Probably not. There's not many running backs making that sort of money, if any. One or two. McCaffrey's, I think, over that.
McCaffrey's making about $19 million, I saw.
Well, actually, Saquon Barkley should be the highest paid, but he's not.
Yeah. And he just signed a new contract. So, but you ask for whatever and negotiate and see what happens. But he was a big part of the Bills last year and solved a pretty big opening. And running backs are kind of staging a comeback. So you have to talk to them. And the good GMs are usually ahead of the curve on anticipating problem areas and give an honest effort to try to get something done within the parameters they're given.
So hopefully Mr. Bean gets ahead of that one and doesn't let this mushroom.
I can see Cook. I could see them finding like some sort of a middle ground between Bean and Cook's agent. I'd say probably if I had to take a gander as to what his salary is probably going to end up being like, I'd probably guess about 12 if I had to take a stab at it. $12 million a year. But I don't know if it's going to end up being 15. But he's certainly worthy of a new contract. But it's.
Well, they got salary cap issues.
Yeah,
and the NFL can play games because of the signing bonus. So you can give Cook $20 million immediately as part of a long-term deal where the salaries are lower.
Right.
to spread it out over 3 or 4 years. So
I would imagine they would do something similar.
there's games that that can happen, and we'll see.
Yeah.
I'm sure that'll be on the table.
Well, I hope for whatever it's worth, he's a part of this franchise for a long time to come. Certainly, at least throughout his prime years, he had a great year, and he's gotten better every year.
Mm-hmm.
So hopefully they can work that out. All right, Saturday the NHL resumes. The Sabres are at home. And unfortunately, they have not provided anywhere near the excitement we had hoped that they would. What do you expect to see from these guys when they come back? More of the same would be my guess, unfortunately.
On the ice, you'd have to think so. Again, the last I looked, the playoff percentage was around 1%, so that doesn't seem likely. And I guess on the ice, the goal was to just improve and see guys take steps forward from here till early April. Off the ice is just a fascinating situation. I know there's people out there, because I see them on X.com, calling for Kevin Adams' resignation daily.
Or stronger terms than resignation.
Yeah. And I just don't know how the Sabres get out of this. Is rebuilding going to do anything right now? Do you change?
Well, who do you have do the rebuild?
That's the problem. Do you change captains of the ship right now again? How many times can you do that? And how much responsibility does Lindy have for the season? Lindy's got a good image in town for his past, but this year he took a team that just missed the playoffs, and they're substantially weaker. And someone's going to have to make those decisions, whether that duo is capable of moving on or if they need minor tweaking or major tweaking, and that's going to affect what happens now, because obviously if the Sabres want to clean house before the trading deadline, get rid of some veterans, it's coming up for the time to do that. But to whose specifications are they doing it? Is Adams going to be allowed to pull triggers if he may not be there? Is Ruff going to have much influence if he's going to be kicked upstairs or something else? I don't know.
How many times do you see someone get a chance to fix the mess that they created? I mean, it's a sad and sorry state of affairs. I mentioned this before, but late last year the Leafs were here, and they beat the Sabres 3-0. Granted, Samsonov stood on his head, but 85% of the fans in the arena were Leafs fans. I get it. They're coming down from Toronto the whole 9 yards, but that's the state of the franchise. So if they were a car and you wanted to get them started, you'd give them a jump. There's nothing that I can see that's going to give this team a jump unless it's a full sale, fire sale where everybody goes.
Yeah.
Is that the right answer?
And I'm a believer that to a certain extent, most coaches have a general level of competence. Otherwise, they wouldn't have been hired.
Yeah, that's true.
There's an awful lot of brain power that goes into the hiring, and there's the bad apples that pop up that you hear about coaches the power goes to their head and they became tyrants, or they're just miserable human beings as a head coach, and that happens. I think of what the Dallas Cowboys did in 1962 or so. Tom Landry was their coach, and they were awful in the first couple of years because they had no talent. And there were cries to get rid of him. He didn't know what he was doing. And the Cowboys front office and ownership said, okay, we're giving him a 10-year contract. Right now, we think he's the guy, and we're putting our faith in him. Now, if it didn't work out, Clint Murchison had enough money to pay him off, certainly, as an oil baron back then. But be that as it may, they identified a guy that they thought would be a good coach under the certain circumstances and stuck with him. And the churning does nobody any good because
it's a cycle, and you just don't get out of it.
A couple of years, and it doesn't work, and you have to change philosophies, and it's more important in football because the game's so darn complicated as opposed to throwing some pucks on the ice and a general pattern. But after a while, you just say, if you have the right guys, then act like it accordingly, and if you want to bring in an assistant to Adams a wise man like Greg Patrick came in and helped Pat LaFontaine for a while. If there's a guy like that out there, fine. The more brains,
Holland.
the more brains, the better. But
So all right,
you got to be decisive and have faith. Either decide that this crew again has failed and it's time to start over, or you've got to say, well, what can we do to make this combination work better? And that's probably going to be the story that we won't hear about from now till May.
well, the trade deadline, March 7th at 3 o'clock. Buyers or sellers, any trade or any move that can make a difference for this year with that 1% chance.
Why would you do
playoffs?
that?
That's
Yeah,
what I'm
well,
asking.
yeah, I can't see that.
The way I look at it is, I don't see Adams being on one side or the other. I think he's going to end up doing a little bit of both. To be honest with you, if there's something that he can sell for, like, a couple picks or whatever, he'll do that. But he'll also probably try to take some guys, maybe some
No more picks.
No.
Players.
What I'm saying is, I think he can bring in future stuff and stuff to help now. I mean, if I was the general manager, that's what I would try to do. But, like, if you could take out a guy like Cousins and move him for, like, somebody proven, then do that. You know what I mean? Because what's the point of having prospects and draft picks and all these young guys if you don't eventually end up moving some of them for veterans who can, help on the ice now? I mean, I don't know how much he's going to be able to pull off, because personally I don't have much faith in Kevin Adams to be able to do that. But, I mean, if I was the general manager, that's what I would do.
And it's tough to do anything big at this time of year
Right.
because of the contracts. You're not going to make it's very hard to trade superstars or stars.
Well, the Sabres
that
signed
sort of
those
deadline.
guys to those contracts, so they
Yep.
put themselves in this position, which is another not a good sign.
Yep. Guys like Cousins and Samuelson with those contracts, it's just, those are hard.
They signed Eichel to a big contract, and
Well, that's
he's not here either.
no. Well, when you look back at this team and you see all the talent that left, and they had all this talent, and they still didn't win. What does this team have to do to actually win something? I mean, I get it. Unfortunately, this remains a very soft team.
Mm.
They haven't had any real grit since who knows when. I can't remember the last time. And you're not winning in that league without a serious amount of grit, sandpaper, call it what you will. But you got to have guys willing to do the dirty work. A lot of them, details, little things everywhere all over the ice. And in the case of the hit on Tage Thompson, stand up and do something about it. Seriously.
At the bare minimum, they need veteran leadership, because they're completely aimless. It just seems like whenever they're on the ice, it just seems like they're just waiting for the inevitable for when they're gonna be down 1 or 2-0, and it's just like, oh, here we go again. The one move this franchise needs more than anything is a move for somebody like a Chris Drury, somebody who's been there, done that.
Yeah, if you can find a Chris Drury, great.
Yeah.
But it wasn't just him. I mean, but don't forget, it wasn't just Drury. Yes, he was the leader, but they had great leadership on those teams. Briere,
McKee was still left over from the '99 team from 06.
he's one of my all-time favorite hockey players. A tough SOB. I really liked him. Was afraid of nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Great shot blocker. I don't have any answers for that team. I ran out long ago, and all those points are fair and valid. And it's easy to say, fire this guy, fire that guy. What good is it going to do you at this point? So, are we sitting here hoping to get the first overall pick again in a year where there's no one like Cabrini or Eichel or Patrick Kane or any of those guys? It's once you're in that cycle, it's really hard to get out of it, and you have to have some good fortune. And this is a team that has not created either pine trees or good fortune for a long, long time. So, if anybody has a solution, please.
I'm fond of saying pro sports teams lose for a reason, and the Sabres' reason really hasn't come forward yet. And it's easy to guess Pagula has done some poor things as ownership, and I can see that. But is there anything else going on that's just symptomatic of what the problem is? I don't know, but clearly what has been tried in the last 10 years plus has not worked.
Well, too many of the same kind of players drafted high, like a Middlestat, 8th overall. I'm just throwing this out there. Owen Powers, he played like a number 1 draft overall pick.
A friend of mine in Denver called up and said, why did we get Middlestat, who's done nothing here for Bowen, who we liked?
Yeah, well, I think Byram's played pretty well. I like him. I would try to sign him.
A rare steal by Adams.
Well, you know, I don't know. I mean, Owen Power takes a lot of grief, and a lot of it is deserved.
I mean, but then again, look at how I'm not trying to defend Power here because let's face it, he hasn't played particularly that well the last couple of years. But I'm just saying, don't forget Rasmus Dahlin. He struggled out of the gate, did he not?
This is year 3 for Power.
Yeah, but
6'6", right? Does
Yeah.
he play like he's 6'6"? Defenseman. I mean,
Yes,
Lindy
this-
Ruff came out earlier this year and said in a post-game press conference, he got out muscled.
yeah,
Come on, Owen, get in that weight room, do something.
Right.
Anybody, please. Like Zucker, I think, had a very good year. He's been better than I think most people expected, but not enough guys, really. I mean, there's only so much the coach can do. What, Lindy Ruff, he forgot how to coach all of a sudden? These guys apparently aren't the best listeners. Would be part of the. I don't know what it is. If I had any answers,
Yeah.
I wish I did. I wish we all did.
you mentioned that name. I mean, Zucker's a fascinating discussion. Do they keep him or do they sell him?
That's a great question.
I think he's only on a 1-year deal.
What do you do? Isn't that the kind of year you hope for a vet so you can move him at the deadline, perhaps? But you're going nowhere. And here's the other thing: you're buried in last place again. Who in their right mind wants to come and play for this franchise?
Yeah.
All goes back to the tank for me.
Yeah, you're right. Well, it goes to the tank.
Spoiled the culture,
Well,
and they haven't figured out how to restore it.
that and I still say the day Ryan Miller got run over and nobody did anything, the franchise died.
I
Dead.
disagree with that, but that's okay.
That's okay. I mean, there was no response, and stuff like that gets around the league. Same thing with Tage. The whole league knows.
He responded better to that one than when Tage got hit. So
Well, go back to the Drury days. Drury gets taken out by, was it Chris Neal? And what happened? They stood up for their teammate. All right, we're going to take another break. We'll be back with more, and you are watching Buffalo Sports Page.
Logistics Plus is a global transportation provider headquartered in Erie, PA, with locations worldwide, including right here in Western New York. Logistics Plus is consistently recognized as a fast-growing transportation and logistics company, great supply chain partner, top freight broker, leading project cargo manager, and a great place to work. With a strong passion for excellence, our 500-plus employees put the plus in logistics.
Or an efficient personal approach for all of your transportation needs. More information about our Buffalo office is available at logisticsplus.com/Buffalo.
Logistics Plus is a global. Logistics Plus is a.
Welcome back to Buffalo Sports Page. Today's show is sponsored by the Paul Wolf Insurance Agency, Logistics Plus of Buffalo, and Dan Chacha Personal Injury Attorneys. But let's bring you in here. We'll talk about women's professional hockey in a minute. But first, the Buffalo Bandits, a rare, and I do mean rare, loss. I watched some of that game. I was going back and forth between the Four Nations and the band. What a great lacrosse game, even though they lost. Fabulous.
Two excellent games this weekend, back to back. The Bandits went up to suburban Toronto because the Rock doesn't play in Toronto and it doesn't play in Hamilton while that rink is being refurbished. So they're in Mississauga, down 5-0 after a period, and wound up coming all the way back and winning the game by a goal. Toronto put on a little burst at the end to get within a goal, but no closer. It's only the second time in the last 10 years or so the Bandits have been down 5-1. It's very hard to make a comeback, and they did so, and all credit to them. Then they had to play the next night, and they give up the first 4 goals. And San Diego, which has a lot of good veterans up front, highlighted by Westberg in this case, but
That guy was great.
every time the Bandits got close, San Diego pulled ahead. Fourth quarter, the Bandits finally catch up and pass them, and what happens? San Diego scores 2 goals, one in the last 10 seconds to tie it, and then San Diego wins in overtime. So it was pretty draining, I'm sure, for the players. I hope that, I said to somebody, "You're going to sleep well?" And I think it was Ian McKay said, "I'm not going to, after this one, I'm not going to sleep that well."
Well, the entertainment value of that game was fabulous. Whatever the price of a ticket was, you got more than your money's worth. Great game.
Through the roof. So now they go back out to San Diego to play the same team again. We'll see how a week off prepares them.
Well, that'll be very interesting, I would think. Did you watch any of the game?
A little bit, not that much, but I did get to see a little bit of it here and there. But that was a good comeback.
Well, a great comeback, and the fans at the arena are really, really into that. In a perfect world, we'd see Sabres fans having the same opportunity to cheer their team like that. Although right now that seems like a real pipe dream and as far away as Mars. So we also get a professional hockey coming to the KeyBank Center Sunday.
Boston and New York.
Well,
Do I know their nicknames? No.
Used to be the Buffalo Buttes.
Right. The Buttes folded, and the league is going to about 7 cities this season playing regular season games all across the country. And I looked. I think this is about Game 5, and the first 4 have averaged 15,000 a game.
No kidding. That's fabulous.
The league as a whole is averaging like in the 6s. And this may have something to do with arena sizes and all that. But the neutral games have been a big smash. Now, I checked tickets for Buffalo. They're not even selling upper deck, 300 level. And the 200s and 100s aren't full as of yesterday. So I don't know how well it's going over for whatever reason. But I'll be there. I'll be covering it. And, I covered the Buttes, and they're playing up at Northtown Plaza, and obviously that's not a big league facility. But I just saw the little girls that showed up and asked for autographs, and the players understood that they were kind of role models and couldn't have been nicer to the kids. And there was just something innocent and wonderful about the Buttes in that sense, that it's a struggling sport, but everyone was trying to invest in it and improve the game. And that was really refreshing to see that level of innocence and kindness. And, those aren't words that come up in pro sports too often.
Well, I'll say this. If you look at the talent on the girls' hockey side in high school and younger, the future for that sport on the girls' side is brighter than the sunshine. The talent level is absolutely astounding. Speed, skill. These kids can
skate. All skate.
Yes, they can.
Skating just jumps right out at you.
Yes,
Every player can skate.
It does. So go see some girls and boys high school hockey too, because around here it's really, really good stuff. It was something I've thought of, and now I can't remember what it was. So obviously we'll just forget about that. It'll come back.
One college basketball note.
Oh yeah, we got a couple minutes for that.
I went to the UB Kent State women's game last night. One of the best women's games in college I've seen in Western New York. I don't go that often, but a terrific game. UB was down like 11 after the first quarter, 21-10. Fought back, got closer under 5 minutes to go. Watson of UB just said, "I'm taking over." And she personally scored a ton of points. I think she wound up with 26, 28. I didn't see the stats. And led UB all the way back for the victory. And nice, enthusiastic crowd there, and very into the game as it went along, because it was such an entertaining game. The contrast, obviously, was the night before when UB, the men, played and just got drilled. And after seeing them on Saturday play a pretty competitive game but a loss, then to come back with that sort of effort probably left nobody happy. I picked the right game to go to out of Tuesday and Wednesday, clearly.
I would say if you want to see great college basketball, go to Main Street in Amherst and watch the number 1 ranked in Division II Damon Wildcats, who are 22-0. That is impressive. Number 1, 22 straight wins. That's a great team, an unselfish team, and they are fun to watch, and getting really good crowds too at Damon. And the women's program is outstanding too. Those two coaches have put together great programs. I know everybody wants to talk about Division I all the time, but they're great athletes at Division II as well. Great programs, and to be number 1 in the country in any sport is fabulous. And a 22-game winning streak is impressive too. So
Bandits didn't even have that.
And that's saying something.
It had 16.
Yeah, that's saying something that the Bandits didn't have that. Go ahead, Tony. You had Looked like you got something on your mind.
I was just going to mention Damon, but you beat me to the punch.
Oh, sorry.
It's okay.
I kind of
Still
have.
remembers writing those checks
Yes.
for his daughter.
Yeah, well, yes, my daughter went to school. My younger daughter went to school at Damon. All right, anything else? Anybody? I'm trying to remember what it was swirling around in my head. I had a good thought, and I completely forgot it.
I've got one non-sports challenge for you guys and whoever's watching.
This could be very dangerous.
Because of the weather.
Okay.
We need a name for that concrete snow pile that builds up behind the tires in the tire well. Because I was driving around, you could hear the crunching of that stuff, and it's like, oh God, I had to go out and pick it off with a shovel or some sort just to get it out so I could turn the car. I think we're all sick of this stretch of weather, and it's like, I hope this weekend it goes for some time, like till next December. But it's been a pretty bruising few weeks for everybody.
I don't remember a cold stretch like this for a few years now. And we had the gigantic storms, the big one in November, a couple of Bills games that got moved. But I don't remember a stretch like this for a long time, a really good, solid, cold spell.
6-week annoying pattern.
Is that what it's been, 6 weeks?
It's probably been. That's what it usually runs,
Yeah.
more or less.
I don't have a name for that, bud. I can think of some things that I can't say here.
Okay.
And I understand your frustration. A lot of places were out of salt that you wanted to put on your driveway and your sidewalk. My wife and I ran around trying to get some the other day and couldn't get any.
1 month left to go, guys. 1 month.
A whole month. All right. Well, anyway, we're just a high school note. Western New York Athletics will have a lot of high school basketball, boys and girls hockey in the next month or so, and hope you'll enjoy it. Final thoughts, boy, oh boy, I'm looking forward to the USA-Canada game. Should be a great game, and I'm trying to remain optimistic about the Sabres, but that may be among the most difficult things to do in sports.
Yeah. Does anybody want to pick a winner, Canada, U.S.?
Something tells me Sidney Crosby's ready for one last big moment.
Yeah. I got a feeling that Canada's going to end up pulling it out, too. I can't see them losing twice to the United States.
Well, just to be different, I'll go with the USA. I do think that Canada does have the three best players. McDavid, who I think is the best player. Crosby, who is still right up there at, 37, 38 years of age. And Nathan McKinnon, who I just love to watch play hockey. So I think those are probably the three best, but
You are wearing red, white, and blue today, just so.
I always wear red, white, and blue. Also, we should mention that one of the great play-by-play announcers of all time passed away, Mike Lang from the Pittsburgh Penguins, who had many famous phrases and was a joy to listen to. He was the Pittsburgh version of Rick Jenneret, and they were both fabulous, and both will be sorely missed by their fan bases. I think we should wrap it up. Somebody give me something happy. Come on, somebody.
Hey, look,
The first Major League Baseball exhibition game is today.
Now that makes me happy.
There we go.
Baseball.
That's awesome.
Cubs and Dodgers, I think, we're playing in Japan next month in regular season, regular season games, so they have to warm up a little early.
Speaking of that, Bud, as a Red Sox guy, you sign Alex Bregman, and didn't they talk to Rafael Devers about who's going to play third base? How does that going to play out?
I heard Jeff Passan on ESPN today make a comment that the money's supposed to cover these things. You just signed for $320 million. That would seem to imply that the team has some rights in that transaction. But players, as Passan said, identify with their positions after a while and they get hurt. But no player in Major League history has ever led his league in errors for 6 straight seasons, or whatever the numbers, as Devers has. Ever.
Jeez.
Not 1 or 2, like 6. Nobody's close to him. And the thought has got to strike you, can we do better? Now, Bergman may be fine at second. That's, great. And Devers is your franchise guy. That's why you paid him that much money. But these days, you got to be so careful on taking offense. But from a baseball standpoint, why wouldn't you consider moving him off third base if that's with that sort of record?
Well, they did trade Mookie Betts, didn't they?
Because they didn't think they could re-sign him.
Okay, well, I mean, they made a gigantic upgrade defensively if they play Bregman at third base.
Absolutely.
How do you not?
Yeah, I think they're just paying Rafael Devers to hit, not to play defense. So they'll figure that out by the end of the day. But
they've got to eventually make him the DH.
yeah,
and unless there's a more creative, teach him how to play first base and trade Cassis.
Alex Cora is a good manager. He'll figure that out.
Well, it's nice to have such problems when you have good players at many different positions and you can afford to pay them. All right. We're going to wrap it up. Want to thank Bud Bailey, Tony Fiorello. My name is Stu Boyar. Our producer is Tim Gardner. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next week here on Buffalo Sports Page.